My name is Antonio. I've been a doorman here in Manhattan for over 40 years. In all that time, I've seen everything in these hallways. Happy families, children growing up, good people. But I've also seen betrayals, lies, and things I never imagined human beings were capable of doing to each other. This is the story of Mrs. Helena, a 72-year-old woman who lived in apartment 804. It's about how her only son sold everything she had while she fought for her life in a hospital. And about how, in the end, a mother's love conquered even the cruelest betrayal. I met Mrs. Helena when she moved into the building about 15 years ago, shortly after her husband passed away. She was a widow, delicate, always polite to everyone. Grey hair, always well kept, simple but clean clothes, that lavender scent she left behind when she walked by. She had an only son, Rafael, who must have been in his mid-40s. He visited his mother every week, brought groceries, stayed to talk. I always thought, what a dedicated son. How lucky Mrs. Helena is to have someone like that. Rafael was married to Patricia, a tall, thin woman, always with a serious face. They had no children. Patricia rarely went up to visit her mother-in-law, just stayed in the car waiting for her husband. But Rafael seemed to make up for it, always coming, calling his mother, taking care of her. Or at least, that's what I thought. Everything changed one day in March. Mrs. Helena started feeling ill. Chest pains, shortness of breath. Rafael rushed her to the hospital. Heart problems, serious. She needed urgent, risky surgery. I remember Rafael coming down from her apartment with a small bag, his face worried. Antonio, my mother is having heart surgery. It's going to be difficult. Pray for her. I promised I would. The weeks passed. 1 month, 2 months. Rafael came to the building from time to time, picked up his mother's mail, checked the apartment. He always gave me updates. She's stable, Antonio, but there were complications. It'll take a bit longer. I sent messages of strength, prayed for her recovery. I never imagined what was happening in the shadows. It was a May afternoon, almost 3 months after the surgery, that a moving truck stopped in front of the building. A family got out. Husband, wife, 2 small children. They came straight to the desk, smiling. "Good morning. We're here for the move to apartment 804. I was confused. Move? But Mrs. Helena is in the hospital. You must be mistaken. The man, whose name was Paul, pulled some papers from his folder. No, we're not mistaken. We bought this apartment. Here's the deed, everything registered. I looked at the papers. Everything seemed legal. Rafael's name as seller, signatures, stamps. I didn't understand. Mrs. Helena sold the apartment from the hospital. I called Rafael. He answered on the second ring, his voice calm. "Oh, Antonio, I forgot to tell you. I sold my mother's apartment. She's going to live in a better place when she gets out of the hospital, more suitable for her age. A nursing home with nurses. It'll be better that way. A nursing home." The words sounded strange. Mrs. Helena always said she wanted to die in her apartment, surrounded by memories of her husband. But who was I to question? Maybe the illness had changed the plans. Maybe Rafael was right, that she needed professional care. The move happened that same afternoon. Rafael showed up with a smaller truck, took the furniture, the boxes, everything. He worked fast, efficient, like he wanted to finish quickly. "Sold most of it, Antonio. My mother won't need it. I'm only keeping some important things. I helped carry some boxes, saw photos of young Mrs. Helena from the wedding, of the little boy. 40 years of life fitting into half a dozen boxes. The new family moved in the next day. Paul and Marina were nice, the children polite. They seemed happy with the apartment. I tried to get used to the idea that 804 was no longer Mrs. Helena's, but something in my chest tightened. Something didn't seem right. Another month passed, 4 months since the surgery. One June morning, a taxi stopped in front of the building. The door opened and Mrs. Helena got out. She was thinner, pale, leaning on a cane, but she was alive. She was back. My heart raced. She entered the lobby, saw me and smiled that tired smile. "Antonio, I missed you. I'm finally back." I stood up nervous, not knowing what to do, what to say. "Mrs. Helena, so good to see you recovered." My hands were shaking. She didn't know. She had no idea. She grabbed her purse, started walking to the elevator. "It was 4 terrible months, Antonio. I thought I wouldn't make it, but God gave me strength. Now I just want to take a bath in my home, sleep in my bed, wake up looking at my things." I swallowed hard. She got in the elevator. I got in with her, carrying her bag. The silence was deafening. I knew what was waiting for her upstairs, and I didn't have the courage to speak. We reached the 8th floor. She walked slowly down the hallway, leaning on the wall. She stopped at the door to 804, searched for her keys in her purse with trembling hands, put the key in the lock, tried to turn it. It didn't work. She tried again, frowning. "That's strange. Did they change the lock?" She rang the doorbell. I heard footsteps on the other side. The door opened. It was Marina, Paul's wife, with a baby in her arms. "Hello, can I help you?" Mrs. Helena looked at her, confused. "Hi, dear. Are you visiting someone?" Marina was at a loss for words. "Visiting? No, ma'am, this is our apartment. We live here." I saw the color drain from Mrs. Helena's face. "Live here? But this is my apartment. I've lived here for 15 years. Marina looked at me, then at her, not understanding. "Ma'am, I think you're confused. We bought this apartment 3 months ago from Rafael. He's the owner, or was. Rafael, her son's name." Mrs. Helena started trembling. "Bought? From Rafael? But I was in the hospital. I didn't sell anything." Her voice faded. Her legs gave way. I caught her before she fell. "Mrs. Helena, let's go downstairs. You need to sit down." I went back down with her to the lobby. Sat her in the chair, gave her water. She was in shock, trembling, her eyes glazed. "Antonio, what happened? Please tell me what happened to my home." Her voice came out broken, desperate. I sat in front of her, held her hands that were ice cold. "Mrs. Helena, Rafael came here 3 months ago, said he'd sold the apartment, showed papers, power of attorney, everything in order, said you were going to live in a better place with medical care. I thought you knew." She looked at me as if I'd stabbed her in the chest. "Power of attorney, better place. Antonio, I never signed any power of attorney. I was intubated in the ICU, fighting to breathe. My son sold my home without telling me." The tears started falling. They weren't silent tears. It was a deep cry from someone being torn apart inside. "My things, Antonio. The photos of my husband, his clothes I kept. The album of when Rafael was a baby, 40 years of memories." I was choking up. He took almost everything, Mrs. Helena. Said he sold most of it, kept a few things. She covered her face with her hands, her body shaking. "He sold them, sold his father's memories, sold my life." I stayed there with her, not knowing what to do, feeling useless. After a while, she wiped her face, took a deep breath. "I need a lawyer, Antonio. This can't stay like this." I called an acquaintance of mine, Dr. Mendez, a lawyer who worked with family cases. He came that same day. What followed was a legal nightmare. Dr. Mendez investigated everything. The power of attorney Rafael had used was fake. He'd forged his mother's signature, used her documents that he'd taken from the apartment. He'd sold the property below market value in a hurry to Paul and Marina, who knew nothing, were victims too. The money from the sale had gone straight to Rafael and Patricia's accounts, who were drowning in credit card debt and loans. The case was opened. Rafael was summoned to explain himself in court. He showed up, pale, no ring on his hand. Patricia had filed for divorce as soon as the scandal broke. She didn't want to burn with him. Rafael tried to explain to the judge, said he'd done it for his mother, that he thought it was better for her. But the documents spoke louder: forgery, fraud, embezzlement. The sentence came months later. The apartment was returned to Mrs. Helena. Paul and Marina got their money back, with compensation for damages. Rafael was ordered to pay a heavy fine, return what he'd spent, and serve alternative sentencing with community service. He wasn't imprisoned, but was left with a criminal record. lost his job when the company found out, lost his wife, lost his dignity. Mrs. Helena returned to apartment 804. Paul and Marina had taken good care of it. There was no damage, but her things were gone. The photos, the old furniture, the memories, all sold, discarded. She had to start from scratch at 72 years old after heart surgery, but she was strong, stronger than anyone imagined. 6 months after the end of the trial, one December afternoon, Rafael appeared at the building. I was at the desk, saw him enter slowly, head down. He'd aged 10 years, unshaven beard, wrinkled clothes, deep dark circles. He stopped in front of me, couldn't look me in the eyes. "Antonio, I need you to give this to my mother." He handed me an envelope. "I don't have the courage to go up." His voice was broken, full of shame. I took the envelope, heavy, as if it carried all the weight of his guilt. He turned to leave, stopped, looked back. "How is she?" I looked at him. "This man who destroyed his own mother. She's alive. More than you deserve." He nodded, eyes watering, and left. I went up to 804. Mrs. Helena was watering the new plant she'd bought. She'd lost everything, but was rebuilding one day at a time. "Mrs. Helena, Rafael left this for you." I handed her the envelope. She looked. Her hands trembled, but she took it. She opened it slowly. It was a letter, handwritten, several pages. She read in silence, and I saw the tears start to fall again. When she finished, she just stood there, holding the paper, staring at nothing. "He asked for forgiveness, Antonio. Said he can't sleep, can't live with what he did. That he lost everything and understands if I never want to see him again. That I was the only good thing in his life, and he destroyed it." Her voice was a whisper. I stayed there, waiting. "What are you going to do?" She folded the letter slowly, put it back in the envelope. "Tell him to come here tomorrow, 3 o'clock in the afternoon." The next day, 3 o'clock sharp, Rafael went up. I saw him enter the elevator, trembling. 15 minutes later, I heard crying coming from the 8th floor. It wasn't just one voice. It was 2, mother and son, crying together. Mrs. Helena forgave her son. It wasn't easy, it wasn't fast, and the scars never completely disappeared. But she decided that hatred hurt her more than it hurt him. That despite everything, he was still her son, the boy she raised, that she loved, and that a mother's love, however wounded, is stronger than betrayal. Rafael was never the same again. He carries the guilt like a chain. But he tries every day to make up for what he did. Visits his mother every week, takes care of her, helps with what he can. And Mrs. Helena, with her quiet strength, taught all of us something I'll never forget. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean it didn't hurt, that it wasn't serious, that everything's okay. Forgiving means choosing not to let the pain destroy you too. It means letting go of the weight, not for the person who hurt you, but for yourself. Because resentment is a poison you take, hoping the other person will die. This is the hardest story I've ever witnessed. A story about betrayal, about justice, about rebuilding. But above all, about the kind of love only a mother can have. The kind of love that forgives the unforgivable, not because the person deserves it, but because love doesn't give up, even when it should.